Welcome to today's episode of the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. Today on the podcast, we're talking about fatigue and are you okay? This has been a rough year. No one is leaving 2020 whole, and I don't suspect that 2021 is going to be any easier for any of us, but we don't know. None of us could have planned for 2020, and I suspect most of us will dial back the planning for 2021 in ways that we have done previously. But because of the ongoing number of waves of challenges that we keep experiencing throughout 2020, I want to ask the question, are you okay? I want you to ask yourself the question, am I okay? I want you to ask each other, are you okay? We're seeing a number of indications in the industry with colleagues, with business owners, with the value chain, through the conversations that we're having on this podcast, we're starting to realize again and again and again that fatigue is setting in, and it is real. I myself, it's now the 1st of October, and I can tell you as we pre-record this episode that the fatigue is real. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I am emotionally worn down. But I'm also excited and invigorated. And, going off the last episode, I am leaning on the character that I've built to help drive me through the next couple of months. We've got an election coming up here in the US. We've got bushfires all around us. Today is another example. It's the middle of, we're heading into autumn. We are in autumn and we are just hitting peak bushfire season here. There is amber alerts going out everywhere on the phone saying get ready to evacuate, etc., etc. It's all going on. It doesn't end. And even those with the most well put together characters are feeling fatigued, and I want to reiterate that that's so normal. It is so normal to be experiencing the fatigue of 2020 right now for a number of reasons, but all the obvious reasons. You may be experiencing financial hardship, your relationships may be under strain, you've been stuck in the same place for a certain amount of time, you don't have the social contacts that you've had in previous years, I would say months, but it's been 6 months since March that I've had a coffee with anybody or a meal with anybody. I'm feeling the fatigue of that, and I'm sure that you are too. Certainly, pretty much everyone that I'm speaking to is feeling the fatigue of that. And so, I wanted to talk to you today about a podcast episode that I heard that I think will be helpful. And we spoke about this recently at a mastermind group coaching meeting, and people found it very helpful. And so I thought that I'd talk to you about it here today. I've spoken a lot recently about Brené Brown's podcast on Unlocking Us, and there was recently an episode that spoke about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, surge capacity and play. And it's this idea of surge capacity and the way that we experience trauma that we as an industry have absolutely been going through that. And as this pandemic continues, we're starting to see more and more people lose their businesses and lose their jobs, a lot of it for no fault of their own. And the strains of that are proving to be very traumatic. And so the way that Brené talks about this in her podcast, in this specific podcast episode, which I will include a link in the show notes to, she talks about this idea that the first way that we react to stress and trauma is with adrenaline, and that's usually very quick. And she equates it to kind of the insulin surge that you get from sugar, or the energy that you get from sugar. And so one way we cultivate energy in moments of stress and trauma is through adrenaline, but it doesn't last very long. The second way is in this kind of surge capacity through a shared trauma. And we have this limit where we're reaching now, actually, where people have been undergoing trauma for enough time where they're starting to get to the end of their surge capacity of being able to deal with trauma after adrenaline's worn off. And so Brene, through this episode, wanted to look at new ways of injecting energy into our life so that we can continue to deal and process and grow and be invigorated so that we can handle the future surges of whatever the election and financial collapse is going to bring as we move forward. And the strategy that she uses for that is play. And the reason I wanted to talk about this today is because as you may find your employees or your co-workers or your employer starting to experience fatigue the same way you're starting to experience fatigue, injecting play into the way that you engage with each other and the way that you move throughout your relationships and your workplaces may be a really great way to invigorate a new energy source. And so Brene talks about the idea of finding play that you enjoy, play for no reason, that you actually enjoy. And we all enjoy play differently. I have recently been speaking to people on my other podcast, Love and Other Delusions. I spoke to a dominatrix. I spoke to a kink expert. That's how they play. Then there are other people who play through engaging with like political discussion. And then there are some people who play through going on bike rides. Some people play through knitting. Whatever it is that you play. And however it is that you can come together and play as a group of people and as an individual is going to be super, super important for you to inject energy into yourself and into your community. And it's important that you make this a priority. We see what's coming, friends. We see that the rest of 2020 is not going to be easy. We see that 2021 doesn't look like it's going to be easy, vaccine or not. We're in for some tough times. So making this a priority, going through the process of understanding how you're feeling fatigued, knowing are you okay and how you're not okay, doing an audit within yourself, understanding that the people around you are probably feeling fatigued and understanding, getting a real clear insight into what that really means for the people that you care about and love, the people you may be living with. Having a clear knowledge, going through the process of knowing what it is that you want to do to play more is going to be super important. One thing that I do want to raise here as we talk about fatigue and we talk about are you being okay and all the stresses in your life that may be contributing to that. Knowing what assertiveness is so that you can build the boundaries that you have or that are necessary in your life to keep people who are passive aggressive, or aggressive away so that they are not contributing to the kind of stresses that you're already under is super important. And if you go to our website, we have assertiveness training specifically for the hospitality industry available now. We've got it available at 50% off so that everyone can afford it. It's really, really important, and it will repay dividends more than I can express. Assertiveness training changed my life. Assertiveness training allowed me to say to people, particularly through this pandemic, you've crossed a boundary. This is no longer okay. Fuck off. And I was able to say that in a way that was respectful to myself as well as to them. after having set a clear boundary and helped them understand what the consequences would be for both of us if we betrayed those boundaries. Once they had been betrayed, I was able to assert to that boundary and take care of myself. And it has been amazingly helpful in maintaining my energy levels up until this point and making sure that other people's issues aren't wearing me down, and that they're responsible for taking care of themselves and I'm responsible for taking care of me. And this is really important when we're managing our fatigue levels. I hope this has been helpful. I will include a link to that assertiveness workshop in the show notes below as well. Peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day.